Are you looking to invest like the professionals without the buyer's agent price tag? DIBA helps you save time and money by filtering out 99% of markets within Australia to give you the top 1% of Australia's suburbs set for strong returns. The do-it-yourself buyer's agency save you thousands on buyer's agent fees and months on courses. Instead, for a fraction of the price, you can search for highest performing markets, target the right property for your investment goals, and be guided through the purchase process. DIBA, the ultimate tool for the everyday investor. Sign up at www.diba.com.au to put the power back in your hands. That's www.diyba.com.au.
This is a Momentum Media production.
Welcome to the Smart Property Investment Show, the podcast by investors for investors.
Hello everyone, Grace Ormsby here. Welcome back to a brand new episode of the Smart Property Investment Show. It's always amazing when we get a chance to talk to investors out there doing their thing day in, day out. And today we get to share another investor's story. It is an absolute pleasure to welcome today's guest, Kate Aubrey, to the show. Kate, how are you?
Hey, Grace. Yeah, I'm really well, thank you. Currently sitting in my little studio on a property, 7-acre property in Coffs Harbour. It's a hot day outside and I'm like feeling that bushfire vibe after the weekend when we just saw a couple of fires, open in Queensland. So I'm here and it's hot all across the country, but I'm happy to be in a little safe studio at the moment on property in Coffs. So yeah.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time. And when I heard your story, I knew that we had to share it with all of our listeners because it is a bit of a unique one. And obviously, talking to people all the time, you hear people buying units and apartments in Sydney, Melbourne, Perth, Adelaide, looking for the best hotspots. And your route to property ownership has been a little bit different and then has had, I think, some different goals and aspirations about it. So this is a very cool story that I'm excited to unpack. Talk us through, the start of this journey that got you onto this property up at Coffs Harbour.
There was definitely a goal in mind, like for many, many years. And that goal looked like a north-facing property on a hill with ocean views that has potential to grow produce. That was, I suppose, a goal in my mind. When I was living in Melbourne, studying as a journalist, I was like, I'm going to own property and it's going to be north facing, it's going to have these aspects and, that kind of thing. And then I certainly let that dream go for many, many years. And I was living in the South Coast in the Bega Valley. I did own property there. It wasn't the right one. It sold with my ex. And then with the money that I got from that sale, I decided that I wasn't ready and I didn't really quite have enough to reinvest at the time. So I decided to put that money into building a tiny home. And I'll go into that maybe a little bit later.
Mm-hmm.
I started that venture and finished it. But what happened was a few years later, my grandma passed away in the Gold Coast, and I felt it was during COVID, and I felt so far away from my family and my community, being like a 14-hour drive. So I started looking there and then. It was pretty much straight after the funeral when I left the Gold Coast and was driving down the coast back home to the Bega Valley. I started looking for property and I found a north-facing 7-acre slopey property with ocean views in Coffs Harbour, and I was like, sold. I didn't know how I was going to get $350,000. I did not even have remotely close to that, but I was like, nah, need to do this. This is happening. I think I put in an offer and I had advice from people saying, you can't actually do that if you don't have the money. And I was like, no, the money will come. We'll figure it out. And I drove down to Sydney where I had a lovely family member and spoke to them and said, I really, really like this. This is, everything ties in. I can only get a small amount of a loan. I can only get, I think it was like 150,000. And I was like, just need a couple of 100,000, no big deal.
Easy.
Yeah, and they said no. kindly. They said, I won't give lend. I wanted it to be a loan as well, but I won't lend you that money without your sister and your mother involved. So that opened up a whole new ball game where then I was like, hey, mum, hey, sis, you guys want to be involved in this project? And I wouldn't say they were like super, super keen. My mum was just happy to support me in whatever way. And my sister was maybe keen for an investment, So long story short, that's kind of what happened. I locked in my mum and my sister, and I ended up getting like a mortgagor through a family member. They took the loan, and I went through a solicitor, all the same thing, and it was all drawn up, and we all had tenants in common. I was 40%, my sister was 25%, my mum was 30%, that kind of thing. So it was all drawn up like that. And at the time, my solicitor said to me, this is complicated and this is messy and this never really goes well.
It sounds complicated and messy just hearing it now.
Yes, exactly. I'm trying to make it less messy, but it was messy. And the solicitor said, this never ends really well. But it was my option at the time, and I really wanted to have that asset closer to where I have family, which was, it's not close, it's 3 hours away, but it was certainly closer than over 10 hours.
Sure.
So, yeah, I locked it in, and then I slowly made the transition from the Bega Valley up to the Coffs Coast to be closer to the land. The land was a vacant parcel of land. It was an old banana block, banana plantation. So very steep, very slopey, just rough terrain. Property developers don't want to be involved. I even called a few. I was like, hey, do you want to do townhouses on this block? They're like, no. So it's a difficult property. I've had to invest $30,000 in half a driveway. I couldn't afford the whole driveway on the slope, and that came about after floods, actually, on the area. During the flood season, I had stormwater damage. So I had stormwater damage on my driveway, and then I invested in getting the driveway upgraded. And now I'm at the point where I am kind of living but not really living. I'm more kind of camping out in a little studio that is up here, and I'm working towards getting a tiny house that I built on the south coast up the driveway. And as it turns out, it is at the bottom of the driveway at the moment, which is another whole other chapter that I've just gone through.
Okay, well, we might take a quick break there because there is so much more still to talk about on the other side of the break. See you very soon for more of this conversation with Kate Aubrey.
Crush the burden of rising mortgage repayments. We understand that managing your finances can be overwhelming, especially as interest rates continue to rise. With access to 70 plus lenders, our team of specialised brokers will find the best rates for your specific needs. Count on us to secure a lower rate swiftly, giving you the confidence you deserve. Book an appointment with one of our experts today to protect your financial well-being and secure your future. Call us now at 02 8866 2444 or visit our website at finny.com.au.
Welcome back to this episode of the Smart Property Investment Show. I am joined by Kate Aubrey, who before the break was telling us all about the property purchase that you made. Kate, on a whim? Would you say it was on a whim?
Yes.
Yes.
I would say it was on a whim. I would say advice from the family was, can you get a house on the site? Have you checked all the things that you need to check with council? What other construction is happening in the area? Just all the things that maybe investors and people that have bought property in the past would check and find out. And I kind of was like, yeah, I checked it all out. It's all good. And I did check to make sure that you could get, that there was a building envelope on the property. So that was the one thing that I did check. That doesn't mean that you can get a DA on the property, a development application, but it means that you should be able to.
Yeah.
And I'm in that process as well at the moment. But yeah, I suppose what happened was, while I have been sitting on the property, I have been living in the area in a unit. So I've been renting locally. In the time, I realised that I couldn't progress. I couldn't actually get a development application for a house on the property with my mum, who's retired, and my sister, who was gallivanting around Australia in a van and living the free life. Fantastic, but it meant that I wouldn't be able to get a loan for a house and I wouldn't be able to build and develop. So it was at that point that I said to my family, can I buy you out? Now I have sort of better income and I'm able to get a bigger loan. Maybe I'm able to buy everyone out and to be the title holder of this property. And that is what I did. So within, I think it was honestly like 2 years, I called my solicitor again and she's like, oh yeah, I was expecting to hear from you.
Let's uncomplicate this.
Yeah, exactly. This mess that you created, let's sort that out. And that was a long process. And that was also a really long process with my mortgage broker because it was a complicated deal. But it finalized about a couple of months ago and I'm the full title holder. I have my first mortgage like by myself besides one that I had in the past with my partner. And it feels really good, like, to be mid to late 30s and own property. And I feel really privileged to have that. And a huge part of that is because of family inheritance, and I couldn't have done it without that support. So I really acknowledge the privilege there that I have to be sitting on 7 acres. It's difficult land. It has, like I mentioned, landslides. It is fully covered in weeds. People say, "Oh, what are you growing?" And I say, "Oh, Japanese sunflower." It's a weed. Yeah, lantana. It's all over the place. You'd love it. So it has its complications, but I feel really grateful for sure.
Well, first of all, congratulations on doing all that. It is a massive achievement. And I mean, we've still got so much of your journey still to unpack today, but I do feel like this is going to bring about some follow-up episodes down the track to track your progress. But secondly, I feel like there were probably more than a few listeners when you were talking about doing the due diligence, probably cringed a little bit inside to hear the little that you did do. And there's obviously, as you mentioned, the complications that arise out of doing it that way. But it's great to see that there's no regrets from making that purchase. And obviously it just brings along, it takes you on a journey, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I'm certainly on that journey. And I have had lots of advice from people, maybe not so much advice, but people that don't understand why I'm doing it and are sort of like, this seems complicated. This will cost a lot of money. Are you sure you want to continue? I've had sort of land experts, permaculture people come walk around and be like, I don't know if you want to do this. Family members, are you sure? It's a good time to get out, kind of thing. But I don't know. It feels, beyond all the complications, it feels right. And actually an interesting thing, like the lesson learned, but it isn't too much of a lesson learned, but when I had bought the property, it was worth $350. That's what I bought it for. And then during COVID, it obviously went up quite a lot in price and in value. And so I think it was like $650. So, I ended up having to pay out within 2 years, my family, a really large amount of money. So, it's a lesson learned. I mean, at least I was able to secure the deal. But, the lesson learned would be, I guess, I wished I had gone in on my own from the start, and then I wouldn't have had to pay out quite as much as I needed to in the end. But, hindsight and all those things. And no one knew the COVID boom that happened. So,
and I mean, pretty good passive investment for your mum and your sister.
And also, yeah, exactly. Yeah. They lucked out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so what has happened since then? You've obviously 2 years have gone by. The property has obviously increased in value. You were talking before about a tiny home and going about the process of putting that on the property. Why did you decide to go down that route?
Yeah. So I bought the property after I had the tiny home. So when my last sale of a property, I had a small amount of money, maybe about $70,000. I was, at the time, my ex was a builder, and we were going to build a house on the property that we had owned. When we split and I took the cash that I was, entitled to, I thought, okay, well, Now I've lost my builder, but I have some money, and I went to the local women's workshop in Bega, Two Sheds, shout out. And I did a little building course. I made like a little some drawers and shelves and things like that. I did a couple of projects. I made a sawhorse, and then I said to the lady, I was like, so I'm considering, I'm going to build a tiny home, and I'm interested in building it here. And she sort of fobbed me off, I think, at the start, like, yes, young person with dreams. And sure enough, but she said she would support that. I bought a trailer and I took it to the workshop, and then together we started running workshops for women, because Two Sheds is a women's workshop. And she did the framing as a workshop. I had 10 amazing women that helped me build the framing, and then I had my friends that helped me thereafter get it to lock-up stage. So we did all the external cladding, the doors, the windows, the roof, all of that sort of stuff. Then I moved it to another location and started doing the interior work over about a year. I had an 8-month break in the middle because I wasn't a builder, and I learnt everything on the fly. I had a registered builder who was at the property at the Two Sheds workshop, so it really helped with all that, the main framing and bones of the building. So it is solid, and it has also been on a truck for 800 kilometres up the coast, and sustained 100-kilometre winds on a truck, or it's probably even more. And it is standing and solid, and was an amazing thing to see. So I lived in it for a year, and then I moved up to the coast. I moved up to Coffs Harbour, and I rented it out. And that was also an amazing achievement, where I felt like, wow, I've built something and I'm renting it out. I am a landlord. And I felt really, really great about that. And it was also during the housing crisis, when rentals were going up and up and up. And I was really firm on keeping it the cost that I had made it at the time, which was $270 a week for a self-contained unit in a beautiful location in a paddock with rolling hills. And she was so happy and so wonderful when I left. And she stayed there for 2 years, the tenant at the time. And yes, has obviously left now because I relocated the home up north. Yeah.
Wow. That in itself is a cool story, Kate. So what is the next life then for this tiny home?
Well, so yeah, it's interesting. So it's here, but I'm just getting some more earthworks on the property before I take it up the hill because of the steepness and all the things on the block. And so then it'll come up here and I will temporarily live in it, but it won't be like a permanent accommodation. It'll be come here and start preparing the land for the end goal, which will be to get a DA for a house. I have house plans in with a company called Post and Beam, and I will more than likely build a post and beam house which is going to be like straw bale. It'll be all earthen rendered on the outside and inside, and it'll have beautiful timbered doors and windows, and it's a kit home, so I'll be able to construct a lot of that myself as an owner builder. I'll register for that, and that's it. So the idea will be to build a 3-bedroom straw bale post and beam house on the property, of which then the tiny home can accompany that as a caravan. So you're allowed to have a tiny home or a caravan on a property that has a registered house. You cannot have a tiny home and live in it on a property without a registered house. So I'm not allowed to live in it. So it's just up here waiting for the DA process for the house to get through. And they're the complications that I'm currently, going through at the moment. And they're not really complications. It's really quite clear. People get very confused about what to do with tiny homes on land, but there's a lot of legislation out there, and council follows the guide, so you just got to talk to your local council. But the name is quite popular now, tiny homes, and a lot of people have them on their properties. So it is pretty clear cut. Yeah.
And will you plan to use that as, accommodation? I'm just thinking short-term rental, Airbnb style thing, or will it just be something that's sitting up there for when friends and family come around?
It is going to be, if you want to do it, so here's interesting, if you want to do it as Airbnb rental accommodation, you actually need to register it as a secondary dwelling. Pretty sure that's what it's called.
Mm-hmm.
If you want someone, or it's a caravan, but someone can only stay in it 30 days or 60 days a year and no more than 2 days in a row if it's a stranger. If you have a family member or someone that is an extension of your household that is living in the property, in the tiny home, then they can live in it permanently. So if it's an extension of your household, they can stay in it. If it is an outsider or it's for profit, you have to register it as a secondary dwelling. So for my instance, it's my mum's ultimately, because that was part of a deal which I didn't quite mention, but part of the buyout was that I would have like a retirement sort of asset for her on the property, and the tiny home fits that bill beautifully. So, it will be her little safety net into the future.
Well, before she does move in, I'm going to put my hand up and volunteer to stay in it.
You're welcome.
And
Absolutely.
come and hang out on your property, because it does sound absolutely amazingly beautiful. We're going to take another break now, but I want to then unpack a little bit more about your choices to go down the route of designing and building the home that you have. So stick around for more from Kate Aubrey.
Stop overpaying on your home loan. We understand that managing your finances can be overwhelming, especially as interest rates continue to rise. With access to 70 plus lenders, our team of specialised brokers will find the best rates for your specific needs. Count on us to secure a lower rate swiftly, giving you the confidence you deserve. Book an appointment with one of our experts today to protect your financial well-being and secure your future. Call us now at 02 8866 2444 or visit our website at finny.com.au.
Welcome back to this episode of the Smart Property Investment Show. I am absolutely loving this conversation with Kate Aubrey, living up in Coffs Harbour, about to build your own home, Kate. You've obviously got a little bit to go in the process. Obviously, bureaucracy is the reason behind that. And planning processes and approvals can take a while. How long ago did you put these plans in place? And has it always been, are you sticking with the same vision that you had when you first bought this property?
Yeah, interesting. I feel like I've always wanted an earthen home, straw bale, mud brick. I've done some earth shipbuilding in the past, which is recycled tyres and other recycled materials. And I always have wanted to go down either earthen or recycled material route. There are, I'd say, many more complications with some of those designs now. BAL ratings, fire danger, although they, face fire danger threat really, really well, some of those earthen materials, but there's certainly loops to go through. Council just wants registered building company, doesn't even really want owner builder too much anymore, although you can get it, but would much prefer the stock standard homes built on property by stock standard companies that are big, even though many of them have gone bust. So there are certainly hoops to go, but I guess my personal interest has always been low carbon footprint, earthen materials, and owner built. I don't know why I got that interest. I think I watched a documentary years and years ago on earth ships, and I can't remember the name of it, which piqued my interest in this area. Then I did a number of workshops when I was living in Victoria, which were to do with earthen material building. I don't have an extensive amount of knowledge, but I have enough to have a real interest in it. And I now have a really great community around that, which I will be tapping into when I get to this build. So it was certainly something that I was interested in. When I had my family involved in the land, I was looking at just kit homes, just really simple, basic homes, just to get something up on the property, because I didn't want to do all the blood, sweat and tears on a house if the asset is partly tied to even though they're family, but to other people. Mm-hmm. But when I bought them out, I was like, okay, so now I'm comfortable to make the investment which is more of a physical investment than a financial investment. I'm expecting, a solid 5 to 10 years to build this house, because I will do it on my own. And 6 years would be good, but I'm expecting it's going to take me a long time, and that's okay. I'm comfortable with that, and that's the sort of the adventure that I'll set myself up for. So
I love that you're being so realistic about this. So many times, we've all watched Grand Designs.
Grand Designs, yeah, absolutely. Smash Grand Designs all the time, love it.
And, so many of these projects, people have these massive ideas and no capital, and no understanding of what it takes to even build a home, let alone something to the scale that they're going to do. But the fact that you've done all this stuff before and you're being very realistic about a time frame is amazing to see. How helpful was it for you to have gone and done these courses in building, and how much of that, backing yourself has really helped you to go, no, I can do this?
Definitely, like 100%. Had I not gone to two sheds and done a few carpentry, is it more like carpentry workshops? When I did natural building, I certainly have a bit of an understanding of working with earthen materials like clay, but I wouldn't have an extensive amount of knowledge. But then going to the carpentry workshop and learning some of those skills and being around empowering women that are builders that have, triumph through the hurdles in the industry to become successful builders, and just being surrounded by these people is absolutely inspiring, and it just made me continue. So when I remember in the early days of building, when I just didn't understand how this fit with this, or how this worked with that, whether it's like electricals, plumbing, what comes first, what you just didn't understand the way it all kind of works. And I remember Googling, YouTubing was my friend. I was like, waterproof a bathroom, how do you do that? What materials do you need, and all this sort of stuff. I just learned step by step by step. And I remember just going back to the fantastic women around me, as well as my dad, for knowledge and skills to help me persist with the project. And it was such an amazing feeling. The first night being in the tiny home, glass of red wine, sort of, makeshift couch, but just being in this building that I had built that was solid and safe. And when it sustained the first rains, and I remember just being like, okay, let's check. Are we going to get any leaks? And then there were no leaks, and I was like, yes, no leaks. Just those little feelings. I owe it to being surrounded by the community of builders and empowering people around me that really helped, I guess, make it manifest and become true.
You've obviously got a fair while still to go on this journey. You're right at the beginning of it, really, which probably sounds a bit cruel to other people listening, but you are so aware of this. I'm not telling you anything that you don't know. Is this your forever home? Like, do you feel like, you will do this and you'll stay here forever?
It's my intention, in the respect that I'm building a 3-bedroom home with the intention of, a family and a future. And if that was not to manifest, then I would like to think, because Coffs Harbour is building itself, it's growing, quite exponentially. There's a Coffs Harbour bypass that's being built right now. They're tunneling. You can see it from the property. So this area is booming, and I am of the hope that I might even be able to subdivide, because it's 7 acres, and always keep a little slice of the property just to have a safety net. So that's in consideration with where I develop. Will be, okay, well, how does the subdivision, how would it potentially work? Can I have the house and the tiny house somewhere and subdivide other parts of the land if I, but it is my intention for sure to keep the asset into the future. Yeah.
That's just so cool. And I love that you've thought of every possible outcome coming from this as well. You've still given yourself so many options while fully investing in the present and the future, and wrapping that all up into one. Kate, thank you so much for sharing your story today. As I said from the outset, I'm very excited to do a follow-up on this, because it's going to be very exciting to watch your story. And I'm so grateful that I'm in a position to be able to hear from you very, very regularly about it. So thank you so much for the time.
Awesome. Thanks, Grace. It's been a pleasure.
Good luck with everything, and stay out of that heat.
Yeah, I know. You're telling me. Scorcher.
To everyone who is listening along, we hope you have enjoyed listening to Kate's story. If you have a quirky story that may be a little bit different to Kate, but you see some of your own journey in hers, please do reach out. We'd love to hear from you. editor@smartpropertyinvestment.com.au. Until next time, stay safe and well wherever you're listening from. Stay up to date with us for the latest news on our website. Subscribe to our Subscribe to our newsletters if you have not already, and check us out on social media, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram. Until next time, bye-bye.
The information featured in this podcast is general in nature and does not take into consideration your financial situation or individual needs and should not be relied upon. Before making any investment, insurance, tax, property, or financial planning decision, you should consult a licensed professional who can advise whether your decision is appropriate for you. Guests appearing on this podcast may have a commercial relationship with the companies mentioned.